Ooh, we're streaming live.
We're there. Okay, great. Okay, Sheryl, thanks so much for playing with us
Oh,
for
I'm
an
so happy to be
optimistic
here.
interview. And why don't you show us that painting behind you?
Let's see, can we see it?
Neat. Tell us about it.
He's a famous Austrian author. Crump, if I get his name correctly. It's an unusual name. Crump, I believe it's how you
Uh,
pronounce it.
uh-huh.
And my kids and I were in Vienna 3 years ago, I guess. And we went to the museum that was mostly dedicated to him, and his art is incredible. So I have a couple of pieces that I've bought. It's very mystical. This is called The Kiss, and it represents a mystical experience. The highest is considered a kiss by the divine. So
Mm.
that's and he's inspired. He has a lot of feminine art of Madonna and child and women in ways that have never been portrayed before. But
Neat.
it's if you ever get a chance, if you're ever near Vienna, and you can go and see his work. It's popular online too, but he really touches into the feminine, and his
Yeah.
work is very romantic, but very spiritual, picking up on the romance that's in spirit. So very
Gorgeous.
cool.
Yes.
Yes.
That the beloved.
Yes.
Mm.
They don't call it the beloved for nothing.
Yeah.
There's a love affair.
Yes, gorgeous. So I'd love to hear, we're mystics talking to mystics, and I'd love to hear, how about just a little bit about you to get a context before we dig into some details?
Sure. I never called myself a mystic, but if you look back, I was a mystic from birth. I had experiences as a child, dreams and visions that I never knew what to do with. And like most people, at age 11, I actually remember the day where I let it all go because I was looking up in the sky, trying to see souls ascending, or trying to see something of my visions in the material world, and it wasn't there. And so I left it all behind. I've always been involved in some religion or spirituality. As a child, I was born into Mormonism, but at 19 left because of the attitude towards women. It was extremely shameful and very difficult to be a woman and be there and hear the things that they said. So at age 19, I left and kind of pursued my own spirituality, and then married, and my husband and I decided to become Christian. We had friends who belonged to a wonderful fundamental Christian in Southern California, and so we joined and were inspired by a series on joy. It wasn't a series on a sinner, and
Right.
this church didn't talk about that. It talked about joy and healing and being happy in life and finding yourself. And after about 7 years of that, I began to have some experiences again, some beautiful ones related with my children and seeking answers for them. It's when you seek for others, I found that you really are opening more gateways and doorways. And uh, loved being fundamental Christian at the time at that church. And then suddenly, about 7 or 8 years into it, I had what I call a road to Damascus experience, a super incredible mystical experience that went on for a couple of years, actually, and a lot of visions and things, and the Bible that I had loved opened up. I uh, just fell in love all over again, and suddenly, fundamental Christianity wasn't big enough. It was just not big enough, and I knew that I needed to leave so that I could make room in my mind for something new. You know, it was filled with all these Christian ideas and more progressive Christianity, I would say. Um, but still, it was limiting. It's a box whenever we have any doctrine or anything that we believe in. So I left and embarked now it's been about 21 years, and the journey has been up and down. On my own when the internet was just getting going, and finding incredible people who were leading fundamental Christianity as well. Some mystic, some not, some intellectual, some academic, and ended up with one group of people for a few years, and they dissolved, and I ended up with a group that is in Northern California. It was a Christian Kabbalah group. And after my kids were raised, I was a widow, so kind of free. When my kids grew up, I moved up to Northern California to be near this group and the leader. And when I became a part of it, it wasn't the same as in a distance. The teachings were incredible, but the application was very severe and harsh, along the lines of the old Buddhist or Hindu gurus, where they shame and guilt their companions into letting go of self. That's kind of the intention. And once you adjust to it for yourself, and I no longer was feeling bad about myself, I was sitting there and watching him doing it to everyone else, and just said there has to be more. So I took off to southern France. I would call it a search for Mary Magdalene. And while I was there, so much was opened, showing that there are so many diverse groups of individuals and perspectives, and from severe to harsh to loving, graceful, and they're all good. They're all good because everyone is in a different place. And there's something to be gained. I would say that it's much better to go in not thinking that this is it, but always know that there's something higher and you're there to learn. And now I'm not associated with any particular group. That's why I call myself a Gnostic. Gnostic means not really belonging to a religion or to a group, but just kind of learning from everyone and learning mostly from yourself. So I would say in the last year or so, since I've been on my own, my understanding has just accelerated immensely, and feel that there's something that I can say that might help others. So I'm really glad for this opportunity to speak out and to speak publicly to other people.
Yes, wonderful. And did I hear you say somewhere along the line that you did do official teaching for a while and then you stopped? Did I make that up?
No. When I was a fundamental Christian, I was a Bible teacher. I ran women's fellowships, and I was involved in doing all sorts of things, taught a few classes. When I was involved in the Kabbalah, the Christian Kabbalah group, I was what was called a deacon. I was a Gnostic teacher. And I had a study group in Southern California, and I mentored individuals then. That was more focused in mentoring them on our tradition and then helping in the background. And I now see that sometimes doctrine, traditions, and particularly Kabbalah, it's huge. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It is just massive. Can become an obstacle because our mind just keeps thinking in a linear way and gets stuck. And so too much knowledge in a worldly sense is an impediment to the mystic.
Yes. It's like we have boxes and then we just keep having to get out of them. And then we're in boxes and we have to get out of them. Right.
Perhaps you have to age a bit. Perhaps you have to go through life and learn that everything is actually relative here. There is no, I would call, absolute truth. There is reflecting truth here. That's where we're trying to reflect. And I heard recently, translate God into the world. There isn't anything that we can find that's in human language that we can say, oh, that's it. At best, it's a reflection. So once you understand that, and you know that's not what you're looking for, you're not looking for a collection of words that's going to describe truth to you, then you it's okay. If this collection of words, this doctrine, this teaching really helps you right now, then great. And when you don't need it, just throw it away, because none of it is actually the true God above, as I call it. It's just all a reflection, and distorted reflections. You know, there are very few perfect reflections in this world. So
Yeah.
most of them have some distortion in them.
Yeah. It reminds me of Buddha talking about, you take the raft, you have the oar, it gets you to the shore, then drop it.
Yes. Yes.
Gets you there. Great. Drop it, because it's not going to help you on the land.
Now you're on land.
Right.
What are you going to do with the boat? You're in a whole new territory now.
Right.
And that vehicle that you used to get there isn't going to help you. You've got to be able to let go of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the temptation is to drag the boat with us.
Yes. Yes. I've heard that story before, and it is so appropriate. I would say that's where I am now. I reached some shore and let go of all my boats and kind of just wandering around now and seeing what who I encounter. It's kind of fun, who I encounter, what we're going to say and do together, and it's actually so much more joyous. That boat is really cumbersome, I'll tell you.
It really is. It was great in the water, though.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. And what does your everyday life look like? Like I'm a big fan that in the old days, a lot of mystics were hermits. A lot of mystics were sequestered from the world in a lot of ways. And now there's so many of us living in the world. And so I think it helps to hear, like, what is your life like? What do you do? What do you do in a day and a week?
I'm still working. I'm approaching a retirement age, probably will retire next year, but still work part-time. I actually hadn't worked while I was a stay-at-home mom. I was fortunate enough to be a stay-at-home mom. My husband died. Fortunately, we had life insurance. We could keep on going. And then when my kids graduated and went off to college and went off on their own, I moved up north, as I was saying, and must work to pay for a house. That sort of thing. So I work, but not full-time. It's not a career, not absorbed in it. It's just helping out. And I'm actually in insurance now. I was an MBA before and had worked in finance and all sorts of stuff. And now it's kind of work light, I would call it. And going to make it lighter, because my heart is in this. It's in this, and I'm very fortunate. For a huge chunk of my life I didn't work, and I could be very involved in spiritual seeking and things like that, because schedules can hinder us. It's best to have a flexible schedule. But the way my life is now, I live in the woods in the foothills of Tahoe in California. I call it a tree house because you look out the windows, you're in the treetops, trees everywhere. So it's a little bit of work to take care of the house. That takes some effort. And I would say I work part-time to pay the bills for the house. It's a little bit more expensive up here than I thought it would be. And believe it or not, I'm taking a break from meditation and study.
Good.
One of the things that I learned was what we call meditation is more of a Band-Aid. And it can be good. It's the settling or the chanting or the focusing on an icon or a candle, the breath. These are all good because they help settle our body and our energetic bodies, but they're just Band-Aids. True meditation arises spontaneously from an empty mind that is at rest. And that is what I'm hungry for now, for that. And I do find that I do just slip in meditation and contemplation through the day because I've done so much of it that it becomes natural. And I've heard several masters speak of this. That's where you want to move to. Instead of it being practicing, you're living meditation. So you are constantly looking within, and this last year has offered me an incredible time to do something that I always before, which is a false idea, thought that if you focus on yourself, it takes you out of the spiritual. There is a focus on self that does not. And it's because your body Your soul is your greatest tool for learning, because you are the world is you. What's going on in the world is going on inside of you. So as you pay utmost and serious attention to everything that's going on inside of you, you're going to learn so much, and you're going to learn how to release the things that you don't need, that you need to get rid of, the anxieties, the tensions, the shame, the guilt.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn more about the world by looking at yourself than you do just wandering through the world. So that's where I'm at right now.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous. And I'd like to talk a little bit about being in a female body. You know, like, it was really interesting to hear you say, like, that's part of like how Mormonism dealt with women, was like, it's amazing that you could have the wherewithal to see it within that and to act within that, and so that's the first part of this question. And I'll just tell you the second part, which is, you know, how did it happen with all your changes with your husband, and what changes when your husband died? Like, so this is all women questions.
Wonderful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As a child mystic, my first love was within, in my dreams and in my visions. And I wasn't the typical girl that played with dolls and dreamed of being a wife or a mother. That's not where my mind was. I didn't dream of being anything, actually. I was just here and just living, and I would just say what I thought of as God was what I loved more than anything. And as a Mormon, as a child, they let you play. Even as a teenager, we played. We had so much fun. Outings. We'd have retreats with other teenagers from other states and meeting people around the country and the world. And it was so much fun. But then as an adult, they sit you down and they start saying things like, you accessed God through your father. Now you will access God through your husband. And I'm going, well, what's this 17 years of my life been about? Who have I been talking to and feeling and knowing? And then there was a lot of pity for the women who were graduating from college and didn't have a husband, so they had to go get a master's. And there was just this, it wasn't anything that anyone said to me that I had to do. It was just watching the attitude towards women that the women even expressed and the men expressed. And without having done anything wrong, I felt shame and guilt. I couldn't point at, well, I did this, I did that. It was just this always feeling ashamed and guilt. There must be something I'm doing wrong, you know. And I remember one night, I was in college at the time, and it was a Saturday night, and it was, I can't keep going on, and just made the decision that I would rather go to Mormon hell than Mormon heaven. And so, because if what I'm experiencing is a taste of Mormon heaven, I don't want anything to do with it. And I was okay with going to Mormon hell if that's where I was going. And I was willing, and there was always, I'm willing, maybe there's more, always this, there's something more. And even then, I think there's more than this. And so went off on my own. And I can't say that I ever felt persecuted as a woman, but I can say that in life in general, there are things when you go and you look back. I was considered bright and with a lot of potential, so that everywhere I went, I've got a scholarship to college. I was offered jobs. Even when I went through the awakening experience and I began to meet people, teachers wanted me to come and be with them. I just never felt put down for being a woman, but I've learned there's this subtle thing. Because I know one thing, after my husband died, because I was a stay-at-home mom and I had an MBA, I was trained in business, and there was pressure. Why don't you go get a job now? You don't have a husband, you might as well work. And it was, well, I don't need the money, and my children still need me. So that
Yes.
just seems like, why would I go and work? Not that there's anything wrong with work. It's
Right.
just, there are these ideas, and at that time, seeing again in another area of life where there's ideas that people put on women and on men, and this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what you should do. And I've naturally throughout life rebelled to that eventually. Sometimes I get stuck for a little while, but
Yeah.
why would you know what I should do? I remember the Mormons told me, God told us what would make you happy. So you need to listen to us. And I thought, why won't God should just tell me? Why would God tell you?
That's the thing. It's hard to control us mystics because we get the direct information, and it's
yes.
like, yeah.
I have a funny story about that. Yes, Jehovah's Witness knocked on my door one day right after I'd had a vision, and I invited them in. Come on in.
Yes.
Well, they were just aghast. The next night they came back with 20 people.
Really?
And they were trying to tell me I was one of the 144 chosen and I needed to join them.
Oh my God.
It's like, why?
If you think what I got is special, I already got it.
I know. Why?
And what I got isn't special.
No, it's not. It's not. That was, you hit it right on the nose. I'm not special. I'm not. I'm just a person and in love with my inner life. I'm not special.
Yes. Yes. And so this same thing, the same, like, I know who I am and I know where I'm called and I know what I'm doing. Like, so was your husband really also aligned with, being very comfortable with you, just coming in and out of whatever you were doing?
Surprisingly, yes.
Good. Yeah, good job.
Surprising. He was out of town when the 2-year visionary experience started. So I was like so excited when the children went to bed and we were alone, and I told him, and he thought it was fabulous.
Great.
And he had already left fundamental Christianity because our wonderful little church had decided they would be better if they bought a big church, and the whole thing changed. So he had left, and that's for him. He didn't want to be there. I still was there for a while. So he himself had a relationship with God inside of himself and wasn't really sold that this story is right or that story is right. So surprisingly, he was extremely supportive of it.
Great.
And he saw how happy I was. And so a happy wife makes a happy home and happy children.
A happy life. It doesn't hurt.
Yes.
That's awesome. And I'm sad for your loss. And was it like any kind of spiritual crisis? People who go through that, sometimes it's very intense and has them doubt, etc. Did you have any tumult about it?
About my husband passing?
Yes.
It was very traumatic. It was the night of my oldest son's high school graduation, and we had family over, and he died in his sleep. So I'll just leave it at that. It was extremely traumatic, but my role was to comfort everyone else. I had his mother there. I had my mother.
Yes. Oh
I
my
had
God.
the children. And so I went right into action mode.
Yeah.
And he had been sick before. He didn't die. He had a tumor on his optic nerve. He didn't die of that. He died of a heart attack, of a sudden heart attack. But we had dealt with his possible passing years before, that something could happen. So he worked at home and then traveled around the world. He had created a great life for himself. And next to his computer on his desk was a stack of papers I would need if he died.
Wow.
So we had already
So you were ready.
broach the possibility that he could pass. And so it was more of, he did die, you know, it was more of, whoa, it happened. We talked about it. So it wasn't a crisis. It was more of just springing into action, I guess I would say. And it wasn't until my youngest graduated from high school that that springing into action slowed down. I had a job to do. I was now the only parent of kids, and I had a job to do. So I'm extremely empathetic with individuals who say, my life is just so busy, I have so many things to do. But there are things to do, even when we're busy and we have children, you know, needing us constantly, and we have a house to take care of, and we have a husband. It is extremely consuming during that period of life when we're establishing household and we have kids and we have husbands. But there are things that we can do. There are perspectives that we can have as we can go through it that will help us and can keep us open inwardly, because I've still had visions and spiritual experiences. In fact, they often arose during the busiest moment when my house was filled with people for a holiday and they're waiting for me and I'm back in the bedroom. And it's like, and my mind is just totally taken up in what's going on and preparing for the holidays. Oh, wait, we're going to have a vision.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's not something, visions and spiritual experiences aren't something that you can invoke. And I have spent years in the Kabbalah group that I was at, following, practicing, and I could sit there and meditate for 3 hours, and I could loosen my consciousness, and I could go up and down through the heavens and the chakras. And afterwards is like, so it wasn't that magical arising of the mystery. I don't know how else to describe it. And that just comes upon you. And so if you are always looking, always ready, so you won't miss it. when the energies are all there and everything just moves. I've had an intense experience looking at a leaf.
Yes.
I'm sure you have too. I'm at Yellowstone, and you would think, oh, you're in all this beautiful nature. I had a mystical experience in the gift shop.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's awesome. Again, it's everyday life, right? We're called to everyday life.
It's everyday life. Yes. And I'm in the gift shop and there's a picture there of buffalo, and I'm looking at this picture and suddenly everything opens and, you know, you see everything, you know, everything, you're in this bliss, and it just all makes sense and it's all perfect. And whoa.
That's great. Great. I have one more question, I think, about, you know, what you shared so far that interests me is, you know, you have all this freedom, you have all this, I know who, you know, I know my way. And you went into, you've said fundamental Christianity, which has associations with like sometimes being kind of controlling and telling you what to think. And so what, how did that work?
I only had one encounter before my major awakening experience where they told me not to talk. And it was okay. It was more of, I'll probably still talk. You just won't hear me. Because to tell people to not speak their story and not talk about their story. I was sharing with someone how Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love, made Jesus okay again.
Oh, silly.
And they said, oh, we can't talk about Marianne Williamson. And I was like, can we talk about how she made Jesus okay for me again? What's wrong with that?
Right.
And I kind of let it go. Where I knew you couldn't, and the reason I did have to eventually leave, because what I ended up doing is because I'm a stay-at-home mom, we had tons of Bible studies during the day for women. So I'd join the Bible studies and I'd sit in the back of the room and I would look for people who needed help. And I might say one or two comments about what the teacher was saying, but I ended up spending a lot of time in the hallways talking to individuals that would approach me and want help. And the last time I was there on a Sunday and I realized I couldn't be anymore, we're in a huge auditorium. One of my friends was an elder's wife. I was sitting next to her and the preacher's talking. And I almost stood up and went, yeah, but and started talking back to him. And it was so hard. And I said, oh, I can't be here anymore because I just can't sit here quietly and listen to them stunt the truth or just give a small piece of it or totally deny it. Yeah, so that's why I had to leave, because I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
Yes. So do you want to say more about your road to Damascus experience? You don't have to, but is there anything to say?
Sure. I had joined a group of women, and we had joined we had created a Bible study, but it ended up into a bashing husband thing. So I think this all began as all of a sudden one day, I just decided I'm not going to do that anymore. So I still went, and I decided that I needed to make room in my consciousness for Jesus. I was a fundamental Christian. I needed to make room inside for Jesus. So I couldn't have all these thoughts about what's wrong with everybody's husband.
Right.
There wasn't room for Jesus anymore. Yeah. And so I stopped it and just had everybody praying for my relationship with Christ. That was it. And making room inside of me. Then I began to hear things, just little guidances about doing things. And one of them was to take a class, to do something. And I lived in an area where there was a Biola, which is a fundamental Christian university. They had extension classes. And they had one, it was Survey Through the New Testament, very common, like 101 New Testament in seminary, that sort of thing. And I thought, oh, I should take that. Well, I woke up one morning just feeling something wasn't right. And I went within and prayed and heard, you're supposed to be in that class. So I called them, and the enrollment had closed the day before, but they still let me in. So this class was a sped up version of reading the Gospels, just super fast and just, going super fast. I fell in love with Jesus all over again, reading this, putting myself in the place of all the women in the parables, because there's so many, most of the parables are women. There's so many stories of his interactions with women, and putting myself in the place and interacting, and just the heart opening. And so we get to Acts 17, and Paul says that God has arranged all the places where people will be born and where they'll live, so that perhaps they might reach out and grope for him. That word grope was like this key. When I read that word, suddenly my consciousness opened. I heard a voice. I saw light. I went to the ground, and then just spent 2 years, I say, on the ground, mostly just visions and opening up scripture to deeper meanings, and tons of visionary experiences after that I did not understand at all. And, so went out seeking, what is this all about? And of course, you can't find it in fundamental Christianity. I used to wait in the cafeteria. We were at a big church. We had a cafeteria. And just to talk to the pastors, they were all my friends. And they had no idea what I was talking about. Yeah. So and that's hard. You're thinking that the group you've trusted your spiritual life to would know what you're talking about, but at some point they don't. Yeah. You no longer belong there. There's a saying I love. It says the Holy Spirit has drawn you astray, has led you astray, and just moving you out of a box that you were comfortable in. I know many people leave fundamental Christianity because they were uncomfortable. I was not. I was happy there.
Yeah.
I really was.
Right. And then you weren't because it didn't fit anymore.
It didn't fit. My inner, my outer no longer matched. And so I had to leave.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. It's a common paradigm. Like Jesus, you know, when we walk with him, leads us outside the city.
Yes.
Or
that.
the Holy Spirit, you know, leads you astray.
Leads you astray. Yes.
It's like, wait, this isn't how it's supposed to be. Well,
yeah,
that's how it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
What you've been taught is like a dot in an infinite universe. So you need to step off that tiny little dot because it's growing smaller and you're growing bigger and you're going to fall off of it anyway.
And some get to stay and some get to leave. Some get to go back and forth, like whatever. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter. It's all just, we're all just one big ocean moving here, you know, different drops of the ocean moving and making waves, and we're all unique. That is the most important thing to say, that each of us are unique. We're like a snowflake. There'll never be another one just like us. That's why it's so important to make the most of the life that we're given, because the world will never have a life like Wendy ever again. We'll never have a life like Sheryl ever again. And so let's make the most of it, because there are no two people ever, no two humans ever alike, both unique. So they're going to see something unique in God. They're going to see something different. They're going to interpret the same experience. They're going to interpret differently because of their uniqueness. And we need it, because when you're trying to describe or get to know the infinite, you need as many variations and colors and things to describe it for you. To try to bring the infinite into the finite. Yeah.
Yes. There's a lot of things happening to bring heaven to earth and to bring the many faces of the divine through us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's our joy.
Yes.
That is our joy. That is where we'll find our joy, is being just who we are in our life. And then I know, and not trying to be what someone tells us to be or what we think we should be, just being who we are. And for many people, they don't know who they are because they're so busy trying to be what they're supposed to be. They have no idea, and they have such inner turmoil. The inner turmoil is caused by trying to be something you're not, that you think you're supposed to be. And that's where it comes from. And as soon as you let go of that and you just be who you are, forgiveness arises, love arises, the heart opens. You don't have regret, you don't have shame, you don't have guilt. Who's ashamed of the spark of God that they are? No, it's your pretend self trying to pretend to be something else that it's not, that's ashamed. It's not who you are. There is no shame or guilt. There's just compassion and love and wanting to help, and just that's
love and
who
light
we really
and
are. Yes. We're each painting a canvas, and some are using charcoal and some are using pastels and some are using oil paints and some are painting the inside of the heart and some are painting the ocean, and it's just, let us do it. It's just so beautiful, and enjoy each other.
Yes. And some use pastels their whole life, and that's awesome. And some of us cycle through all different kinds, and that's awesome. Yeah.
Yes. And it's really important when we feel the most uncertain and we feel the most ungrounded, like things aren't right. It's because something spectacular is getting ready to move. And you need to just stop and watch and listen and be okay without not knowing. what's going on or what the future is going to be. Just be in that not knowing, because after you've gone through it a few times, you know something incredible is coming. And let's just be okay with not knowing what's going on today, because it's going to be okay. Just believe me, that is a great place to be. When I wake up and it's fluxy and I don't really know what to think or know or say, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gold. That's really gold, because that gets learned with experience. And if we can, if I can hear your experience, then that helps me along the way, and I'll have plenty of chances to learn my stuff too. But it helps to hear, oh, if it's gristy, pay attention. There, the wind might be changing.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
We're so programmed to think we've done something wrong.
Yes.
So that if the natural or the programmed response is, oh, I must have done something wrong. I've been through that many times. Why does it feel like this? I must have done something wrong. Total wrong label to it. Something is shifting.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it was wrong before. Just you said I was using pastels. That's fine. Now I'm going to go to charcoal.
Right.
And that's fine. That doesn't mean pastels was wrong. Charcoal is right. It just means we're going to do something else, which also means I'm going to have a different perspective and a different focus. It doesn't mean what I thought before was wrong. Yeah. It means I've just moved somewhere else in the infinite, whatever we want to call this, creation, nothingness at the source of it. I'm just moving to another place in it, and we'll be blessed to get to know that place in the infinite. So
yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so you so wonderfully sent me a few ideas to talk about ahead of time. Before I start to talk about it, is there anything else like from here before that you want to? Okay, no. Great. So you said something about the spiritual labor occurring right now in our world. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. We have heaven and earth. And to try to, it's hard to speak about this without sounding dualistic. So I'm going to try not.
I understand.
Yeah. What heaven really is a reflection of a stream of consciousness. And many people know there's something wrong with that stream of consciousness. Some Gnostics call it the demiurge. Kabbalah, they call it a continuum. Krishnamurti, who I listen to all the time now, calls it the stream of sorrow and suffering. and we're born into this consciousness, and we take up images of ourselves. We create from birth. We create personalities, emotional bodies, mental bodies, along with our physical bodies are developed. But they're developed out of this stream of consciousness that is not the true God above. However, if you want to believe that Adam and Eve created it because they ate the apple, there's something wrong here. There is an error here. There's something wrong here. And there is a healing within this. We take up these images. Some people call them false images of roles that we play. And it's okay to be a mother, but we, in our thought patterns in our mind, we define what mother is and who I am, and then what you are, and my child is this, and we create these images, and these images clash with each other, because I have an image of my child and myself, and my child has an image of themselves and me, and they either submit to my image of them and try to become just like I think they're supposed to be, or they rebel because they want to, they see something else. There's a lot of healing that can go on in there. People, we have a lot of drug addiction. We have, alcoholism. We have anxiety, depression, and this is good work. The healing that people are doing, I call it healing the image. Healing the image that we've closed ourselves in. It's become so wounded here. Some traditions will call that waking up in the dream. I'd like to clarify that I actually prefer not calling this entire world a delusion or a dream. I don't think that's helpful. I think what's helpful is to point out what goes on our mind is the delusion, not what's really happening here. It's really happening. But we, in our thought patterns and the way we think, we create a lot of delusion. It's all in our mind. And becoming free of that, making a happier image, healing from our wounds, that can be called waking up in the dream. We're waking up in the dream. And so that we're more alert, we're more aware of what's going on. We know how to protect ourselves. We know about codependency. We know about depression, anxiety. We know how to deal with these things. And that we need so much healing here. That's really good for people to be involved in that. There's another healing that's called waking up from the dream. And that's when we realize that all these images that we're trying to heal, they aren't even who we are anyway.
Yeah.
So waking up from the dream, that's me wandering around on that island that I sailed my boat to. That's kind of where I am right now, and understanding that. And waking up from the dream requires extreme seriousness, zealousness, attention, focus, because this is going into ourselves, and this is looking at every little shift in energy, everything that happens, every thought that rises, every feeling, and looking at it, not analyzing it, but looking at it and seeing what it is and going into the energy of it. I think a way to describe it is a few years ago, and this happens, I know, to everyone. I'm laying in bed, getting ready to go to sleep, and I'm not going to go to sleep. My body's tense. There's something going on. And what do? Well, let's take a sleeping pill, or let's get a glass of wine. Let's get rid of that tension. Let's stretch. So I try that for a while, and I lay down in bed. It's still there. So I go, okay, what's this about? And I stop fighting it, and I relax, and I just let it in. And it was anger. I was angry. And I went in and I felt the anger, and I said, okay, let's just float in this anger. Let's feel this. What are you angry about? And I was angry because a spiritual teacher who had told me that they would help me didn't help me. It was kind of a lie or a misleading thing that they had said. But instantly, as soon as I saw that, I also saw that I didn't need their help. And so this anger that I had was over something that wasn't even necessary. And as soon as I saw that, the anger disappeared, the body relaxed, and I went right to sleep. Yes. So that's the kind of work is really not being afraid of our feelings and looking at them. Because if we go in honestly, seriously focused and looking at our feelings, not afraid of them, I'm angry, I'm depressed, whatever it is, not learning not to be overwhelmed by them, and we're overwhelmed because we're afraid of them. And it's just energy. Feelings are just energy. Yeah. And looking at it honestly and seeing what it's about. Fear is common. We all have fears. Typically, we're afraid of something. A common fear is a fear of death. Well, the way to get rid of that fear is to understand death and to understand what is it about death that I'm afraid of. And because when you do that, you're understanding the world too, because you are the world. You're understanding the fear in the world. You're understanding the anger in the world. Yes. And you're releasing it in your own body, uplifting all of humanity as you do it. So so that is the work, the higher work, believe it or not.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That
the
is
rubber
the
hits the road.
Work. Yeah. Is freeing ourselves from, because these images that we've created ourselves are like prison bars. Well, I'm this, so I put myself in a prison, and I need to be this. And when I can't be that, then I feel bad, and I'm anxious because I'm trying to be that, and I'm not successful, or I'm prideful because I was really good at that. And all of that is just, of that is just all fake. Eventually you realize it's just all, it's not real.
Oh.
And as soon as you can let go of the unreal, all that's left is the real, and it's who you really are. So it's just, that is freedom, and that is freedom from bondage. That prepares you, doing that work prepares you for what Christians call born again. They don't understand born again, Because when we let go of the stream of sorrow and suffering, and we're no longer rooted, connected into that consciousness, we freed ourselves from it. I always say it takes help. We have angels, we have spirit, God, everything there's assistance. Then the infinite can find you, because the infinite is always trying to get into our consciousness, always trying to find us. But we put up all these bars of self and who I am that keep the infinite out. But once you can let go of all the bars, then you're open to the infinite, and the infinite can take you up as a temple, as Christianity calls it, a vehicle. And then the infinite moves in this world through you. And that's born again, born of spirit.
Gorgeous, beautiful, delicious. Yeah, good. I love it. And related to this is an overview of different traditions and teachers, helpers, and their different modes of healing. Is there anything you want to add about that? This was related.
I am so grateful for everyone that's come into my life and taught me. Even, in fundamental Christianity, I had incredible friends who worked with me on the healing of the image, that were there for me and helped me to heal the image. I prefer grace and love, but there are traditions that operate on harshness and severity, and I think I mentioned it. And I think that we get stuck in thinking that's all there is, because you have someone who has done the higher healing, who is the vehicle of the infinite moving in this world. And we have a tendency in our programming, when we still have images going on, of thinking, well, that must be it. That's all there is. And God is only one thing and should be the same through everybody. And that's, that's not the case. I'm not a fan of shaming people and severity at all. I'm a fan of loving people and grace and just pointing the way to them, because an experience of the true God above is unconditional acceptance.
Yes.
Everyone is accepted and welcome.
Mm-hmm.
There is no barrier to that. There is no, you're not good enough. There is no, so in my mind, and I'm not going to denigrate other ways that people do this, that's what I experience. And that's what I want to reflect and translate into this world, is that love and that acceptance, and that everything's okay. Everything's okay. It's okay. And just to let people know that no matter what's going on here, even though we've just went through what a year, it's okay. because the inner work is still going on. In fact, when we think it's really awful here, there's a lot of good inner work going on in people. So things are not what they appear to be, because what's most important is what's going on inside of each person. That's what's most important. And just keep our eyes on that and helping each person as they work through it. And of course, everything that goes on in the world and our reactions to it give us information about what we need to heal in ourselves, our reactions to it, our opinions. But it's okay, no matter what happens, it's okay. Because you come out of these experiences, and that's the overwhelming feeling that you have, that it's okay. It's all okay. It's all good, as a matter of fact. It is good.
All shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well.
Yes. I once had an experience. I was suffering in a meditative experience, and I came out of it thinking, everybody's having fun but me. Because of experiencing in a higher state of consciousness, it's all good. And everything that I was having trouble with, there is no problem. And so that was a shift at my outer surface consciousness. I'm the one that thinks it's a problem. Nobody else does. So why hold on to the problem and cling to the problem? let it go. Just, we're all doing the best we can. I really love the idea of forgiving 70 times 7, because the picture that it's painting is that we all are going to hurt each other. We all are going to make mistakes.
Yes.
It's a very clumsy world. It's a broken world, you could call it. Gnostic texts call it an error. This world is an error, however you want to look at it. So it's going to be messy here, and we have to constantly forgive each other, because we're going to make messes and other people are going to make messes. And we just keep going, we forgive, and we just clean up our messes and help people clean up theirs and get back to the work of finding freedom.
I think that might, I mean, I love this conversation. That might be my favorite thing you've said so far. It's very useful to keep remembering this. It's messy, messy, messy. Let's get over it.
Exactly. There's also, we have a choice what opinion we want to have. You don't have to have an opinion about everything. But you can have an opinion, because you're free. If you want to have an opinion, but you don't have to.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really awesome. Great. I love it. Okay, next whole section. What are we laboring to accomplish? What is mysticism? What's it all about?
I think that we've touched on what we're laboring to accomplish. That stilling the mind, ridding it of damaged images first, and then all images eventually. That's freedom, walking in this world without any images. And then I heard it put this way, because so many traditions have, like Buddhism has the lotus flower, Gnostic Christianity has the rose. When mysticism is actually where it's at, because seeing within and beyond the material is what we're called to do. We're called to see more than what's on the surface, what's behind it, heal it, find the source, the essence. And everyone is actually a mystic. They just don't know it. They're having experiences that they doubt, or they just brush them aside, or they're just so busy. But we're all mystics. And when you really start having, visions and things like that, you go, aha, I had a seed of this when I was driving down Main Street, or when I was walking through the garden. Said, yes, it's all there all the time. And I love the idea of remembering mysticism is approaching the mystery that's behind everything, and putting those two words together. So we're all mystics. Well, we dream. Most of us dream at night. That's a mystical experience. A dream is a mystical experience. Imagination is budding mysticism as well. We're imagining. Yes. And what we want to do is take what we perceive, what we're intuiting, what we can see, what we can hear, that's within and behind things, and translate that into the material world, reflect that into the material world. Because as we go deeper and deeper into things, they become more pure. It's more love, more bliss. It's not less. So you're always going to be translating more perfectly. Might as well start now, translating. And we get so busy that we know, oh, I should have been nicer, or I should do this. Translating or reflecting what we're experiencing within ourselves is our job. That's what we're supposed to do. And we do it in our work, in our relationships with other people. And I heard it once that as we do this, that is blooming. We do it each and every day. We translate our experiences of God into the material world, and that is blooming. And each day we bloom. So I would say that our purpose here is to bloom.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I'm just so encouraged. This is personal, but I recently basically I'm rebranding my ministry, and the name is Bloom.
That's what we're doing.
The subtitle is bring out the gift in you.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly. That's
right. That's
and
a nice confirmation.
Gift,
thank you.
It is. If your gift wasn't needed by the world, you wouldn't have been given it.
Perfect.
So, yeah, the world needs you just as you are, just who you are. Yes.
Yes. That's the thing, and that's the center of it for me today. Awesome.
At least today.
Yeah, today. Because, we live in a river. Okay, so yeah, more pure translation of God. You talked about that. Less cloudy reflection of the infinite in time and space. Awesome. Okay, hooray, we're on to the second half of this one part. Certain terms: God, spiritual, enlightenment. You want to just go through? I'll just say a word and you tell me a few things and we'll go on.
Sure.
Okay, God.
Creation.
Nice.
Versus invention. Invention is something from something. Creation is something from nothing. So the power to create something from nothing is God.
Nice. Spiritual.
I would say the spiritual is anything that we can't detect with measurements in the material world. So it just means that we're not able to measure it with our devices, but we do develop the ability to see it. I mean, this might blow your mind, but this world isn't solid. But people know this. They have to know this.
Oh God, we know this already.
Science knows that there's space in between all the molecules. This world is actually fluid. Like when you're sitting next to a person, your body is actually merging and merging with them. But we're all sold that everything is solid and hard and fixed because we've agreed in our collective consciousness. That's what we all see. That's not what the world is. Yeah. The world is actually fluid. So when you start realizing what's really there and what's really going on, that's spiritual. And it just means that it hasn't been detected yet with our material measurements.
Nice. I love it. Enlightenment.
It's blooming.
Amen, sister.
It's blooming. Enlightenment, some people call it awakening. I know being woke is like so used. It's like the N word, using woke. I'm so woke. Well, you can be woke in the dream and you can be woke from the dream. What level do we want to talk about being woke? And enlightenment is when the bars of our images fall away and the light can get in. Let's just say that. That's what enlightenment is. When these prison bars we've created with our thought patterns finally cease and stop and the light can get in.
Gorgeous. Oh, that's delicious. Great. The way.
When we use terms like path and things like that, it makes it sound like that there's a specific goal. Or something that, because if there's a goal that we're not at, then it means that we're lacking. We're not there yet. And so the way is just a way to live. And we can throw in blooming again, every day making the intention to bloom and to pay attention to what's going on in ourselves and others, to listen. Walking in the way is just walking in the truth of yourself and learning it. And because as you do that, I think there probably isn't a spiritual tradition around that doesn't get the idea that to know God, you must first know yourself, because God is the source of you. And you have to get through all the layers to get there. So the way is just walking through ourself and letting all the bars fall away.
So delicious, isn't it? Just to talk about it and say hello. Reflection.
This world is reflection. And it's a distorted reflection. But everything that exists has that as an essence. Even the reflection has sparks of infinity and the divine in it. So it's not separate. It's just, but the way that time and space and everything that we experience, it's a reflection. So I think even those who know the Bible, the author of Hebrews calls Jesus the perfect image of God, the perfect reflection of God. He uses a Greek word that means reflection or image. So it's not a non-Christian idea that we are reflecting, as we're seeing within and we're reflecting it without. That's making the inner and the outer. You've got to have both. You're awakened within, but you've got to reflect it out, or you aren't making the outer like the inner. And I think that might be pretty prevalent in Gnostic texts about making the inner like the outer and the outer like the inner, making the two one, male and female. We're getting into that same idea that points to some mysteries of layers of ourself, which aren't even necessary to know.
Right.
It's there. There are layers. There are rungs. I think Kabbalah calls them. There are levels of self, and as you go in, you don't need to name and define them all. You will experience them, and you will get to know them, and you'll see, whoa, where are we now?
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to like look and say, oh, this is where I am now. It's just, it can be validating.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Good. I also know about reflection, beholding and reflecting as in a mirror, the glory of God from glory to glory. I'm a particular fan of that one.
Yes. And the glory, glory is a great word. I love the definition of glory as divine attributes, radiance. Just the radiance. Aroma is another word. The aroma of God. Nice. It's what emanates out of God. It's like the aroma of a rose.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's really great because we have all these soul senses, and we're so visual, light, and we're heart, love, but like there's just all this deliciousness that's available. The aroma and the sight and the smell and the taste and the touch. It's all here in our souls, how we experience the divine. And we don't always tune into that, but there's so much deliciousness there.
There is. There's a common mystical experience where you smell roses. And I'm sure there are others, but I hear of roses most often, where actually your smelling senses are stimulated and you smell roses and you're having a mystical experience. There isn't a rose there, but you can actually smell it.
Yeah, gorgeous. Okay, bondage.
Ooh, well, that's we've touched on that. That would have to do with I like to differentiate between blame and responsibility, because we can't blame anyone because they've created bars and prisons. We were born into this world. That's what we were programmed. That's what we were taught. That's what we did. It's not anybody's fault. Nobody's at fault. But the only way to find freedom is you. You have full responsibility to do that. And so I know in Christianity, got all lost on sin and you're in bondage to your sin, and they're kind of missing the boat. And they're missing the boat on what sin is. If sin are these images. I mean, you can go back to looking at everything that Jesus is recorded as saying, and you go, oh my goodness, he talked about false images. He talked about hating mother, father, or spouse. He's talking about these images we create, losing your life to find life, losing the fake self that we're trying to be so we can find who we truly are. And our bondage is to these fake ideas that ourself, that we must hurt ourselves and other people to try to sustain, because they're not real. And that's why we sin. We're trying to sustain something that isn't real. So we hurt each other, we hurt ourselves. That is sin, and that is bondage.
Awesome. Love it. Oh, la, 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 la. Meditation. We talked some about that.
I touched on that. Yeah. Yeah. I think daily meditation is awesome, but as I said, there's a higher meditation. And so right now for me, I've meditated, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. And I want to see if I can not meditate and still maintain that sense of calm and peace that I get after I meditate. Because it ends and you got to do it all over the next day. And it's not, you need to keep it up. If you have to keep doing it, you're not really doing true meditation. You're just practicing. You're practicing meditation.
Right. Practicing attention, intention, focus.
And it's important. That's
alignment.
Good. Focus. Yeah. Because for some people, that's the first time that they've ever gotten quiet and really looked at their body. Yeah. Because you can't meditate without looking at your body. And all the energies in it and what you're feeling. And for some people, that's the first time they've ever done that when they sit in meditation. And it's pretty hard because the thoughts are going and all sorts of things are happening.
The emotions are big.
Yeah. So there's not to renege or say that meditation, there's a problem with it all. No, there's just another level of meditation.
Yes. All that practice, we just be it and be it into our life. We just be it.
Right. Don't need to sit and still to go into yourself. Be able to go into yourself while, like right here now, just get used to that feeling of being centered and walk in it all the time. You actually are listening, deeper listening, external and internal listening. It's this, and it was something I couldn't figure out what it was. That how did I open up? Of course, when you're touched by something incredible, you just surrender to it, like a great lover. How this opening up that happened, I would just call it in a state of constant listening and stillness. We want to get to that place.
Gorgeous. Okay. Little self, big self. Little life, big life.
Well, I would put that into the images and the who we truly are. Or we can talk about layers of soul, but I prefer the images because our outermost self is an image, and we're not going to be able to move and interact in this world without some images, but to be free of them, just, you take it up and to be free of them so that they aren't who you are. You're just putting on this coat, or you're wearing this role, like you're an actor in a play, except it's serious. Because what you're doing, you're not just, you're more seriousness than playing a role. You're actually taking up a role to interact with a person in a way that helps them, whether it's your child, your husband. But when we start making rules on the little self, that I actually want to turn it around, and I want to call it the big self is the images, and the little self is actually who we truly are, because it's just a little spot.
It's big
like
deal.
The drop of the ocean that the entire ocean pours through.
Gorgeous. It reminds me back when you were talking about you spent 2 years on the ground. That's like the basis of the word humility, and that's like who we really are, is that just that little self.
It is. And you hit something so important, that one of the reasons I believe that holy sages, particularly if they engage in severity, is because of the pride. There's a difference between pride and joy. Although someone on the outside might think you're being prideful because you're so happy, because typically only people who are prideful are happy. I don't know, but there's a difference, because humility, as you said, we do this with the joy, but humility pulls us back into that little self that we know we are. And it's this balance that, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. And I'm so glad I'm nothing.
Yes.
And in a moment, something magical can happen through that nothingness. And so,
yes, because there's so much more space for light or love, or whatever you want. But
yes,
I must grow smaller and it must grow bigger.
Exactly. Yes. You made me think on that one, because yes, we want to be that small self, but able in a moment for that big self to pour through us.
Yeah.
And then we go back to being a little self.
Yeah. And but what pours through us is just another divine aspect. It's just another quality of the divine. In this case, you said joy. It doesn't have to be us. And if it's us, then it gets uncomfortable. But if we stay small, it's just the joy.
I would say it is us, but it's not us alone.
Yeah.
That's where the humility comes, that all of us are these little selves, and all of this joy is what Christianity calls our inheritance. That is our inheritance. These big things that can move through us is our inheritance, and it belongs to all of us. Like the joy that moves through me isn't my joy, it's all of our joy. It's the joy of creation, I guess, of God, and it's all of our joy.
Yeah, it's fruit of the spirit. Yeah. Gorgeous. Okay, one more. Then we're on to the third and final question. Gnosticism and Gnosis. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Just to clarify, since I label myself, occasionally, just to differentiate what I am right now as a Gnostic, some people might not know that even though Gnosticism has written teachings and everything, that's not what it's about. It's all about Gnosis, which are the experiences of the infinite. And so a Gnostic becomes a Gnostic because of the experiences, not because they read a lot of books and they can take and pass a test. So
it's kind of the wrong direction.
Yeah. So I know some people will read Gnostic texts and they go, "Oh, I agree with this." And that's not what it's about. It's not for you to agree with. It's for you to recognize this is a sacred text, and it can help understand what you're experiencing and give you words to describe what you're experiencing, but it's not telling you what it is.
Yeah.
So, and it's inspirational, because you find when you read something, the more pure it is, because all human language has some taint, the more pure it is, you're able to see it inside of yourself. You're able to see it in your own experience inside of yourself and what you've known. And so it's not just a mental thing. It's a heart thing. It's a cell thing. It's any experience of the infinite. It's like it's coming from your cells of your body. It's coming from everything. It's and when you read the text, you'll say, there's words to something I've experienced or I felt, but I didn't have words before. So that's what the texts are all about. Not something for us to memorize and say, this is what I believe, because that's why people have a hard time with Gnosticism, because they say so many different things.
Right. That's because we all are reflecting the light from a different place.
That's right. I'm standing in a different place in time and space. I walked a different path to get here, and I'm going to reflect it differently. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And also that Christianity defined itself and disambiguated itself from a particular flavor of Gnosticism, Manichaeism, I believe. but
Mm.
doesn't mean that all Gnosticism is bad or anti-Christian or
Yes.
right. Like, it's just like, it's gotten all piled together as
Yes.
and it's, so I just want to disambiguate that.
Good, good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. People they like labels and they like to clump things together and say that this is good. It's a duality. Don't even have to talk about duality. I think everybody knows our minds are programmed to think dualistically, and we see things dualistically, and we have to stop ourselves and understand there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's not all black and white here. There is no black and white here. Because even in the most righteous thing anyone could do, someone's going to get hurt. That's just the way the world is messy. Yes. And even in the most evil thing that happens, it can result in some good. I mean, so it's really messy here. Yeah.
It is. And I do want to say, since we're, this is a mystic conversation, that Gnosis is about direct experience.
Yes.
Gnosis is the mystic experience.
It is the mystic experience. Yes. I would say brothers and sisters in Gnosis. That's what some people call us. Brothers and sisters of Gnosis will say mysticism can lead to Gnosis. Gnosis is the experience of the infinite, and it's undescribable. You can get a group of people together and they all come up with different words to try to describe it. And they'll all go, yeah, like that. It's indescribable. Mysticism is insight, revelation, visions, things like that. Gnosis it's seeing everything and knowing everything. I don't know how else to describe it, except you can't label it, you can't call it anything because it isn't. I used to call it certainty. I love uncertainty because there was everything was perfect. It was all certain. It was all good. I guess I lived in so much uncertainty at the time that in the experience for me, I called it certainty because everything was good. Everything just complete and absolute. Not even just faith, you just know, but you can't talk, you can't speak it.
Yeah, non-intellectual knowing, soul knowing.
Yes.
Yeah, claircognizance, we call it.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing for you, what I hear you saying is in the mountain of mysticism, like the peak is Gnosis, is what you're saying.
I think Gnosis is the gateway to the peak.
Okay, the gateway to the peak. Interesting. Thank you. I'm glad we distinguished that.
Yes, the peak would be union with God.
Go ahead.
The peak would be union with God.
Got it.
Not a lot of us are able to do that and abide in it. And that would be not just experiencing Gnosis or the peak, but becoming it and being able to stay in it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't.
Not just vacation there, actually live
there.
Yeah.
Right. You're there all the time.
Right.
And what it's like on the inside, I can only talk from the taste of the gate to it. So
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, great distinctions. Thank you. All right. Here is our final question. It has two parts. And I think we might have dealt with a lot of this. How is the labor accomplished? Where can we start?
I would say right here, right now. What are we feeling? Go into what is that feeling? Go into it. In fact, I've heard people say, don't even try to label the feeling, just feel it. And don't be afraid of it. Often we're afraid of intense emotions and like anger. It's just that it's so powerful, intense. It's actually good practice for going into union with God, because you can imagine in union with God, you're feeling
It's very
way
intense.
more power than someone
Very
being
intense.
angry.
Yes. Yes. It's a good
So
practice to learn to be with intensity.
it is. It's good to be with the energy of anger and feel it and see it for what it is. And then when you go into it, you'll see the root of it, why you're angry. Like I described that night when I couldn't go to sleep. Go into fear. If you find you're afraid of something and you can't release it, then go learn about it. Go do it. If you're afraid of an airplane, and then just go get on a plane and go, face the fear. Don't be afraid of it, because everything's okay. But our fear, our shame, our guilt is all obstacles. And our anxiety, anxiety is caused by trying to be something we're not. We have this image of what we think we're supposed to be, and to be this, we got to do this, and this, and doing this and this and this is just too much for us, and we don't even need to do all that. Why are we doing that? I know my friends used to wonder, when I had the experience several decades ago, why my life was no longer busy. I had plenty of time. They used to say, how do you have this time to meditate and pray? And I go, well, you realize that 99% of what you spent doing during the day is actually not needed. And so that's, once you get rid of the false images, you have a lot of free time, because you're no longer trying to validate this image that you really even aren't anyway. And you put a lot of energy into it, and then you're freeing the energy that's trapped in it, the sparks of light, as some people call it. And now you have more energy because it's not trapped in all these fake things you're trying to do.
That's awesome. That's really beautiful. I love that take on it. Okay, so the finale here of this question is, how can failures become successes? Anything more on that?
That there really isn't a failure. There's just, it didn't work. Or I reacted. I spoke from an image that I'm defending when we see it. There's just all learning. And maybe we might need to go and apologize to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Say, you know what, I realized I was trying to prove how smart I am. That's why I said that, and I shouldn't, because
right.
I don't need to prove I'm smart. I'm sorry.
Right.
And so when we go in and we're really seeing, honestly, we're seeing our motivation for why we did things, and we forgive ourselves. We go, wow, I was really trying to be a skateboarder, and I'm not a skateboarder. So to say that I failed at skateboarding, no, I just tried it. That's not for me. I didn't fail. I just tried something that didn't work. Some people might try 4 or 5 marriages and they don't work, and just saying they're just trying, and the people they were married to are still trying too. We're all in this mess together, working together. Forgiveness and knowing there are do-overs. There are a few things that are hard to do over. So, probably should avoid driving intoxicated or, things like that. There are some things to avoid because it's really hard to do over. I would avoid all those things where someone could get hurt.
Yes.
But just a harsh word to someone, no reason for us to get all in a tizzy because we said a harsh word or because someone said it to us. Just go, okay, now let's calm down. Let's look at what's going on in me. Why did I need to do that? So I prefer looking at it. And also, when you have these experiences, one of the things that I saw repeatedly was how everything in my life was perfect. And particularly when I get into these points where I think, oh, I've made a lot of mistakes, everything's all messed up, I'll have an experience of, no, it's all perfect. It's because even through, I'll put up my hand here, life goes like this. But there is a thread of consciousness through all of our experiences that's moving just as it needs to. And it gets back to, I'm the only one not having fun because I'm doing this on the surface, but underneath it's this barge that's just flowing just as it needs to go. And I may be jumping off of it and doing flips and hurting my back on the ocean and doing all these things, but what needs to happen is still happening. And it's all good. And when you have these experiences and you realize that where I thought I messed up, it has no meaning. Someone's feelings may have been hurt and go and apologize and talk to them about it.
Right.
But there are no failures. When it's all said and done, this isn't going to exist on our life chart. The only thing that exists is this barge that's moving and progressing well. And so we might as well get on the barge instead of jumping off of it. Let's get on the barge.
Rest on the barge.
Let's rest on the barge that's moving through our life. And we may decide to go swimming a little bit or something, but we'll get right back on that barge and know that even though today felt awful, that barge is still moving, and so it's still there for us. And some people call it a thread. It's a thread of our soul that exists in time and space.
Yes.
And when you settle in on that, none of the other ups and downs they no longer matter.
Yeah, they don't carry us away.
No. We're tethered to that barge, I think.
Yeah.
And we just got to find our way back to it.
And, I'll do the Christian of that is all things work together for good.
Yes, for those who love God and are called according to his purposes. But we're all called according to his purposes. They're just referring to, did you hear the call or not? Because God isn't calling your false images. He's calling who you truly are. So so that's how I would put it, because who you truly are loves God and is called to go according to God's purposes. So for your true self, it's all good.
Right. Yeah. And it's a matter of, are we tuned into that? And that's called love in that sense.
Yes.
Gorgeous. What a phenomenal conversation.
I had so much fun.
Oh my goodness.
You want to do it again tomorrow night?
That's amazing. So did you come wanting to say anything that you haven't said?
No, we covered, I didn't come, it was hard to come up with the questions even because, just go with what happens. And we did. And we covered a lot of stuff and
Great.
We did it.
You were wonderful to come with questions that I got to see. I usually don't get to see.
I actually almost pulled them back because I thought,
whatever. It worked. It was kind of fun to just be what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
Great. And so do you have any final words for us?
Trust yourself. Just, more than you know. And we all know so much more than we think we do, but we don't trust ourselves. And trusting yourself doesn't mean that you're perfect on the outside. It means that you're perfect in the journey. You're perfect in the way. And trusting yourself, you'll be able to find that barge, because that barge that we were talking about is what you're trusting. And it is not going anywhere. It cannot be sunk. It is always there for you to find. And again, some people call it a thread. It depends on, barge sounds really heavy, but whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It is always there for you to find no matter what's going on. And this is like, it's like the infinite thread through time and space. And it's there for you. It is who you really are.
Amen, sister. Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for your being and your beautiful face and your beautiful glory
so much fun.
shining.
So much
and
fun.
playing is so fun. Okay.
It was fun. Thank you,
And
Wendy.
wait, how can people be in touch with you if they want to be in touch with you?
I used to have websites and all sorts of stuff, but I am just on Facebook, and
Okay.
I am public. So Sheryl Plocharczyk, if you put the name out there, and I have quite a few people who contact me on Facebook, and I'm not looking to be anybody's guru but I love to help people right where they are. So if anybody has any questions or any help or anything, please just find me on Facebook. I'm there.
Perfect.
And I'm available.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.